What exactly is NATO? And why does it seem to appear in the news whenever global tensions rise? The name is often spoken with urgency, sometimes fear, and sometimes confusion. We hear about NATO expanding, NATO responding, NATO holding emergency meetings, but rarely do we pause to understand what this organization truly is, how it began, and why it still matters decades after the Cold War supposedly ended. NATO is not a country, not a world government, and not a single army marching under one flag. Instead, it is one of the most influential alliances in modern history, shaping global security in ways that affect nearly every nation on Earth. NATO stands for the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, and it was officially created in 1949, in the tense aftermath of World War II. Europe lay devastated, economies were shattered, and a new fear had emerged. Another massive conflict, this time between former allies. The Soviet Union had expanded its influence across Eastern Europe, and many Western nations feared that aggression or political pressure could spread further. NATO was formed as a collective defense alliance, meaning its members agreed that an attack on one would be considered an attack on all. This principle, known as Article 5, became the backbone of the organization and a powerful deterrent against military aggression. At its core, NATO is about collective security. Instead of countries defending themselves alone, they pool their military strength, intelligence, and resources to protect one another. The original members included the United States, Canada, and several Western European nations, all connected by the Atlantic Ocean, hence the name. Over time, NATO expanded eastward, especially after the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991. Former Eastern Bloc countries joined, seeking security guarantees and political stability. Today, NATO consists of more than 30 member nations, making it one of the largest military alliances in history. Despite popular belief, NATO is not a single army that automatically deploys troops everywhere. Each member country maintains its own military and decides how it contributes to NATO missions. Some provide soldiers, others offer intelligence, equipment, logistics, or cyber capabilities. Decisions within NATO are made by consensus, meaning every member must agree before action is taken. This often makes NATO slower than a single nation acting alone, but it also ensures that actions represent collective will rather than unilateral force. NATO's mission has evolved significantly since its founding. During the Cold War, its primary goal was to counter the Soviet Union. When the Cold War ended, many questioned whether NATO was still necessary. Instead of dissolving, NATO adapted. It began focusing on crisis management, peacekeeping, counterterrorism, and cooperative security. NATO forces have been involved in operations in the Balkans, Afghanistan, and anti-piracy missions, showing that the alliance's scope extends far beyond Europe. One of NATO's most misunderstood aspects is Article 5, the Collective Defense Clause. This clause has only been formally invoked once, in response to the September 11, 2001 terrorist attacks in the United States. That moment demonstrated that NATO was not just about defending borders from invading armies, but also about responding to modern threats like terrorism. It also highlighted the alliance's symbolic power. Nations standing together, even when the threat does not come from a traditional state actor. Critics often argue that NATO increases global tensions rather than reducing them. Some claim its expansion threatens neighboring countries and fuels arms races. Others point to unequal burden sharing, noting that some members spend far less on defense than others. relying heavily on larger powers for protection. These criticisms are not new, and NATO itself frequently debates how to remain fair, effective, and relevant in a rapidly changing world. Supporters, however, argue that NATO's very existence prevents wars rather than causes them. By making the cost of aggression incredibly high, NATO discourages attacks before they happen. The alliance also promotes democratic values, military cooperation, and political dialogue among its members. For many smaller nations, NATO membership represents not just military protection, but a sense of belonging to a stable, rules-based international order. In today's world, NATO faces challenges far different from those of 1949. Cyber attacks, disinformation campaigns, space security, and emerging technologies have joined tanks and missiles as threats to global stability. NATO has responded by expanding its focus to cyber defense and hybrid warfare, recognizing that modern conflict does not always involve traditional battlefields. The alliance continues to adapt, trying to balance deterrence with diplomacy in an increasingly complex geopolitical landscape. So what exactly is NATO? It is a promise that nations will not stand alone in the face of danger. It is a political agreement backed by military power, shaped by history, but constantly evolving. Whether praised as a force for peace or criticized as a source of tension, NATO remains one of the most important organizations in global affairs. Understanding NATO means understanding how modern security works and why cooperation, for better or worse, still shapes the fate of the world.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed uncovering the hidden stories behind everyday things, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Janasco. Hit the bell so you never miss a new discovery. Until next time, keep exploring the world's surprising backstories.